All right, here we go. Technology, I give up. That's why I don't work in technology. But here we were both waiting for each other, and we're getting invites and all that fun stuff. But we're here. Okay. Um, I do start my next shift at 4 o'clock. So we're going to make this part A, and then we're going to do part B because this is a big topic. But wanted to get on. We have been, we've been trying to get on. We just didn't know we were trying to get on together. All right. But ADHD Awareness Month, which is great because we can talk about it in more depth with 2 episodes. But let's kind of address kind of what is ADHD, because let's be honest, lots of parents come in, I think my kid has ADHD, and okay, but why? Why do you think that? And well, they don't pick up their toys, or there's all sorts of little reasons they may have, and they may have ADHD, but they may also not have ADHD. And so what do we tell people when they come in, so what exactly is ADHD? Let's answer that question. We'll go from there.
Yes. Well, most experts in recent years are saying the name of this neurodiverse condition is really a misnomer, because you hear attention, you hear hyperactivity, and there are countless things that lead to issues with attention and distractibility. Hyperactivity, it's actually a minority of students who have physical hyperactivity. It is about emotional hyperarousal. That is a hallmark sign of it. And sometimes they start out when they're younger with the physical hyperactivity, and then parents think they're getting better. It actually just shifted to internal emotional that hamster wheel in the brain. It is very, and also a lot of experts are saying really we should be calling it a disorder of working memory. That's problem-solving memory, your mental sketch pad, and using your long-term and short-term memory to combine the relevant and irrelevant things to solve a task. And if attention and working memory are very tied together, but if your working memory isn't working, you don't have as much attention to give. So it's really a disorder of executive function. It is not what it sounds like based on the name. Rejection sensitivity. There are some just hallmark things. Impulsivity, yes, but there are just some things that are hallmarks that get missed.
Yeah, I would say one of the biggest things is memory, right? When they start saying there's inattention, but also just our short-term memory, like there's none. Then I'm starting to cue in. Okay, there might be something here, not just I'm easily distracted, or let's be honest, a 5-year-old boy is going to be hyper. And boys obviously get the diagnosis more. I shouldn't say obviously, but they do get the diagnosis more than females, right? And so, but you get a boy in and he's bouncing off the wall. What is that? And so lots of times that's associated with ADHD, right? Like he can't sit still. He must have ADHD, but that's not the case.
And on the flip side of that is parents who ignore their gut. They know something is going on that needs to be addressed, and they hear boys will be boys, and so it can work both. It can actually work both ways. They are often, I put up a post on my page last week that by the time kids are 12, experts estimate that individuals diagnosed with ADHD have received 20,000 more negative comments than those who do not have it. Or I bet if we look at that with other challenges as well, we could say more than quote unquote neurotypical individuals. We're all neurodiverse, but based on what the research calls by that. But it gets dismissed, or they'll grow out of it. It's just a phase. Maybe it's hormones. Hormones do not cause ADHD. Sometimes they exacerbate it. But right. I always encourage, even if it's not ADHD, it doesn't mean it's nothing. Right. But it is very important to not tell us what the symptoms are, but then we need to uncover the root causes of those, because so many things, visual perception and processing issues, big time, can mimic ADHD. A lot of things can.
I would say visual processing is probably one of the, and auditory, actually visual and auditory. A lot of kids have auditory processing
those get confused all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. Very confused. And, you have parents come in and I'll say, I think there's probably some auditory processing going on there. And they'll be like, what is that? I've never heard it, like to no fault of the parent. I'm not saying, but, they're going through all this testing and they're trying to get answers, and no one talks about visual or I shouldn't say no one, but it's more common for me to hear that. No one's ever discussed this with me. I don't know what's going on. And so, they're like, oh, well, this makes more sense a lot of times. Like that actually kind of starts checking off some of the boxes of what I'm seeing. And so it's very interesting. You need to have those conversations with your healthcare professional, just making sure that you're giving them all the information and making sure that, like Heather said, you have that gut feeling, right? Like moms come in and they know, like, sometimes they're just an encyclopedia of information. I'm like, wow, this is impressive. You know a lot. So don't discount your gut. Okay, that is very, very important. And I always appreciate parents who come in and say, I've been looking and I've been researching. What are your thoughts on this? Because they care. I know they care. All parents care, but they're trying. They're trying hard. And so a lot of times parents are churning too, right? They're churning, trying to help their kid because they don't know where to find the answers. And so, but I do appreciate when parents come in and at least tell me what they're seeing and tell me their gut feeling, because it does help a lot.
Another thing that gets confused, they can coexist or be confused, is just any type of sensory processing disorder, even if it's not visual or auditory, where they are oversensitive. There's a modulation issue. They take in too much sensory information, or they don't take in enough, and then it can appear as though they're spacing out when really that sensory information did not compute. And so the symptoms matter. We do not want to normalize. If there's a struggle where we can make things better, there's always gifts in there too. But we don't, just because your neighbor, well-meaning, I've had a lot of parents in tears say, people think I'm being a drama queen. I know something is up. I had a conversation with a mom just a few days ago like that, where the school was telling her everything's fine. She listened to her gut and came in, and wow, is it a good thing she did. So the symptoms do matter, but just because there's hyperactivity, just because there are many types of attention, that's important to keep in mind too. ADHD is really a disorder of, and I don't even like to say disorder because it's just a difference, but it is a challenge of regulation, emotional regulation. Sometimes it's physical regulation. It's not that I cannot attend to anything, but that I cannot regulate which thing I attend to at the right times. What is relevant and what is irrelevant right now? Let me turn down the volume on this and up the volume on this. There are a lot of kids, if you have kids who very specifically have more difficulty attending when they're doing something that's visually taxing, like reading, that's not necessarily ADHD. If maybe they have more difficulty with instructions, and that might be auditory, and it can be both. Just because you find one yes on what it is doesn't mean you stop looking, because there can be a combination going on.
Yeah. So, parents, what we're saying is, the brain has three jobs, right? It has to perceive information, right, from the body, from noise, from sounds, from sight, all of our senses, internal, external, all of that stuff. It has to process that information, and then it has to execute some sort of action on that information. Okay. And so, there's all sorts of struggles that could be in there. Yes, you may have ADHD, but things can mimic it. Auditory processing, visual processing, autonomic dysfunction, they're all, very intimately related too. And that's one of the things I want to mention here. And I know Heather, talks about this all the time too, but, just that's why it's so important when you tell, like when parents come in, they tell us the whole story, right? They write things down, and because symptoms that we're seeing on top of symptoms or correlated symptoms mean something, right? And so one of the things I think of with ADHD is the galant reflex, primitive reflex in the low back. I get lots of parents who come in, my kid can't sit still, they're struggling to pay attention, and then I always ask, any bedwetting issues? Yeah, bedwetting issues too are those related? Yes, they can be related. So even things that we sometimes don't think would be related, they do have relationships.
Yeah. And depending on what research you look at, it's a huge percentage who do have comorbidity. They have more than one thing going on. Learning differences, anxiety, depression. A lot of times with ADHD, it is more of a low-grade depression, but that doesn't mean it's not impactful online. And so, and there is a strong trend, especially in females, for them to be diagnosed with anxiety when it might actually be ADHD, or they also have ADHD. I met with a woman close to my age, a few weeks ago, who was saying, I didn't realize until, I think she said, until I was 47, that I have ADHD. I was on anxiety meds for years, and it wasn't helping at all. she didn't have anxiety, she had ADHD.
Mhm.
Those are, and sometimes one exacerbates the other, and so what we need to look at is what's causing what is the root thing, and then that can exacerbate the other one. It really changes. The best way to approach it is what is the primary, what is the secondary, kinds of things going on.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. What is up to 25% can have 3 or 4 comorbidities. So that's 1 out of 4 kids, with a neurodevelopmental diagnosis. So, and that's if they get diagnosed and appropriately diagnosed. So, the numbers can always move a little bit, but I think what you're talking about there is, a lot of times it can be, either misdiagnosed or the comorbidity, right, is not truly addressed, or we think it's one thing, it's not the other. So it's so important to take a good exam, but also, write things down and have a good history, because the more information you provide to your healthcare provider, the more they can understand the person as a whole. And so I think there's probably a lot of people our age who had ADHD, but boys will be boys, or or it's anxiety or whatever else it may be. And so
Or just they're the problem child. They're lazy. That's the thing is, a lot of people say this didn't even exist when we grew up, and look at me, I turned out fine. We're just pandering to. It's like, how was that for you? I'm sorry you struggled with that. We want to do better for the kids of today. It wasn't called ADHD until 1986, but that was the problem child, the lazy kid, the unmotivated one. They can pay attention if they want to, not if it's not something they're interested in, they don't. I want to touch on that real quick, because so often attention looks like a choice. And so then they're defiant, they're being stubborn. Does that exist? Yes. But also, we are usually drawn to things that are in our wheelhouse. This comes naturally for me. I'm good at it. I'm interested. If I'm doing that, brain wise, I'm not churning. I can walk all day long, so I can attend longer. If I'm doing something that is calling upon weaker areas of my brain that I struggle with, I'm churning through it. I can only sprint for a 100-yard dash. Therefore, how long I attend to it does not last as long. I don't have regulation to ignore this thing that's super enticing to hone on the thing I'm supposed to be doing. So just keep in mind, is there an issue of cognitive flexibility, which can be with or without ADHD? Okay, loud books dropped. I wanted to check it out. That's normal. But someone with cognitive flexibility can immediately get right back on point what they were supposed to be doing. Whereas some individuals have switching attention issues. And once I get diverted, holy cow, good luck getting me back, going. So, and then when I'm doing things that are inherently interesting and motivating and novel to me, it releases feel-good chemicals in the brain. It's a dopamine release. It impacts the chemicals in our brain. And kids do not have control over the chemical responses in their brains. So it is easier for them to keep going because the attention chemicals are high, because I find this interesting. They're not being stubborn when they can't attend to this writing assignment that's really challenging. Writing requires a ton of regulation. ADHD is a disorder of regulation, or a challenge with regulation. But there are always enormous gifts in there too.
Yeah. So I want to touch on a few things. One, every kid, no matter the struggle, has a gift. I guarantee it. They come in, they are just some of the brightest, funniest, most intelligent kids I've ever seen, but they have struggles. Okay. So, when I see a kid, I see this incredible, and I know Heather sees the same thing, this incredible, amazing, talented individual who just has their areas of struggle. Okay. And so, but we all do, right? And so, but one of the things that I love that Heather said is, like, I hate running. Okay. My wife can run miles, right? Like me, quarter mile, let's quit. I'll lift weights all day. Weightlifting, I am good. Running, I quit. Okay. So, but that speaks to the difference in how, what we like, right? So I can attend very easily to weightlifting. I hate running. My wife is the complete opposite. So, you have to remember that the brain is rewarding you for positive things, right? And so dopamine plays such an important role with that. So, if there's something I'm really interested in, video games or other things, I can pay attention, right? Because I'm getting a reward, dopamine. You have no control over that. But there's other things where you're churning really hard, you're running, and I hate running, and it's really hard for me. I I don't want to do it. It's hard. And so I think it's so important to understand that as well, because we have really smart, very talented kiddos with amazing skill sets who struggle. And so just understanding that, I'm churning here. It may not look like it externally, right? When I'm out running, I'm sweating and dying. It's easy to see. But if it was all internal, you would just say, Brian's just being lazy, right? Like he just doesn't, he has no motivation for it. I just don't like to run. That's true. But it does sometimes look like that, where they're internally just struggling so hard. Like they're running a marathon and they can't keep up, or they're running a 300-yard sprint and you just don't see it. And so that is so important. I know parents care about that, and they always, their heart goes out to the kiddo when they see that. But just remember, they don't have to be externally sweating bullets to be churning. They may be very good. I see a lot of kids, very smart, very talented, and they're just hold it all in until boom.
And a lot of times when they hold it in, it's sometimes there's a teen thing to that, and that's why we have to have very attuned relationships and prioritize one-on-one quality time in the good times and in the rough times, so that in the rough times you have that relationship. But sometimes they don't have words to articulate it because they see emotions much more all or nothing, black and white. They're lacking emotional granularity. And so the way they perceive and experience emotions is much larger. And when I'm overtaken with large emotions, I have less headspace to think about how my actions made someone else feel, or to have memory, to get things done. Like, how do you still not remember to take your schoolwork and turn it in? Hit the submit button on the online school. I've had parents say, they completed it. I saw it. They uploaded it. They did not hit submit.
Yeah.
And so many things. Just keep in mind that if you see careless errors, if you see things that, they're rushing through, that is regulation. That is every bit as much a cognitive skill as knowing the answer to the questions on the exam. Very important.
Yep, 100%. All right. I apologize that we had that miscommunication and invites weren't being accepted and all that fun stuff. But my shift is starting, so we're going to do part B next week. We will be in person here in Dallas. You're coming, right? You'll be here? Yeah. All right. So Heather, if you ever wanted a picture with Heather and I, we'll be here. Okay. But I hope you all are able to come out. It'll be a lot of fun. If you ever want to ask us any questions in person, we'll be walking around and we'll be happy to always answer questions for anybody who has any questions. But please come out and visit us. That is this Saturday, so October 9th from 12:30 to 3:30. We'll have a bubble truck, bounce house. Heather will be there. So you're going to, all her amazing answers, she will be in person. So if you want to say hi to her, please come in, say hi. But we will be back next week with part B of this ADHD topic. All right. As always, if this can help somebody, a neighbor, a friend, coworker, please share it. Heather, you provide such amazing information to the community. How do people find you?
At The Hidden Churn on Instagram or Facebook, or Brain Balance of the Woodlands, Katy, Mansfield, or South Lake.
All right. She does not hide. Okay. So I see all of her posts. She's always posting, trying to help everybody in the community. So make sure you follow those pages. She also has another podcast that you should watch, Mondays at 2:00. Is it going to happen this week?
It is. Actually, the topic from last week is happening this week because Facebook and Instagram had like national or global outages for hours on Monday when we were scheduled. It's going to be like, I know my child is capable of more academically. What's holding them back? We're going to talk about some study skills that are not intuitive. What we historically have done to study is not how true learning happens. This is going to be really beneficial. And of course, we'll be tying it to various neurodevelopmental struggles.
Awesome. So make sure you follow those pages, jump on the podcast Monday at 2:00. And we will be back next week, same time, providing that, Facebook is working or invitations are going through. Who knows what's happening in the world of technology, but we'll be back next week. Thank you, everybody. We look forward to speaking with you next week.
Have a great week. Bye.